Hey guys, welcome back. It's Hybrid Spectre. So today I've got a little bit of a different lore video today. And I'm not going to be reading a lore book, but instead I'm going to be talking about some things that were mentioned in one of the lore books. This is completely unscripted, and anything that I say is purely speculation and should not be taken as fact. So I can proceed now that we've got that out of the way. And it involves the Drifter. And if we go to Artifacts and Old Friends, if you look at these things here, the core mines of Saturn, the Luvial Crux, the shift chasms below Eleos, the fourth tomb of Nezeract, the idols of Lower Sul, the treasure of Exodus Prime, the solar engine of Dead Star 6. Now, there's a couple things that there's a couple things about this, though. These I'm going to call them legends because we're only just now hearing about them, or myths, I guess you can call. We're just now hearing about these. From what I remember, none of these were mentioned in the original Grimoire of Destiny, and I'm still yet to get part 1 of that lore. I'm gonna get it eventually, and I'll read that for you guys. But anyway, side the point. I don't think the original Grimoire mentioned any of these. Which begs the question, because these things were mentioned here, will we see them, or will they get mentioned, or, play some kind of a part in a later DLC or in Destiny 3? Especially the fourth tomb of Nezerac here. Now, there's a couple things. Now, I'm not going to claim to know everything about Nezerac because, in truth, what I know myself is what we have here on its lore tab there. And I've been told a couple things about it. One, I've been told that he is the deity of... Shoot, I can't remember their names. Of the... Apparently it's supposed to be the new enemy faction that's going to appear in Destiny 3. He is apparently their god. And the fourth tomb is where he is currently laid to rest. That's one of the bigger theories out there. The second is that Nezerac is a metaphor. And that's simply it. And that I think the idea is that instead of running away from the darkness, Nezerac fought it. That's the metaphor. And that's about all we know. But more specifically, there's another thing that I want to turn attention to that was mentioned in this lore book. And that is Exodus Prime. And one thing to keep in mind is that this sentence here, I think he's making it all up, but he's got relics and etchings. All this stuff. Now, there is a chance that the Drifter could be making this all up as he goes along. He could be. But I'm going to side more with that he's telling the truth. For one big reason. Exodus Prime. Now, if we think about this for 1 minute, where have we heard the word Exodus? We're not talking about the biblical Exodus. The Exodus Black. The Exodus ships. If we're familiar with some of the lore here, the Exodus ships, those were the ships that ventured out during the Golden Age to try to find new worlds. The Exodus Black is the only ship that we know that bore that title, and there's a couple other ships called with the title Exodus with a bunch of other colors, but I can't remember those off the top of my head. But we're more familiar with the Exodus Black, which means that the Exodus Prime had to be a real ship because of the rest of the Exodus ships, which means someone had to have known about it. And that's what makes these particular myths so significant, is because someone at some time had to have known about these. That's why we know about them now. That's why Drifter knows about them. But from what we know, he's the only one who knows about them. Which begs the question, how did he come to know about them? Someone else had to have known about all of these legends, especially the Exodus Prime. From a writer's perspective, they wouldn't name myths like these so specifically, especially the Exodus Prime, which we know the Exodus ships were real. We have the Exodus Black as evidence of that, which means the Exodus Prime had to be a real ship. That's my best theory about the Exodus Prime. But the thing is that someone had to have known about all these. And because drifters got the materials and all that stuff to back it up, I think drifters telling the truth about some of these legends. But I honestly believe that the Exodus Prime is evident that he is telling the truth because we know about the Exodus ships. Now, like I said, I'm not well versed enough in the lore to really prove anything, but I'm only going by what we know. And I could be wrong. I'm not a lore master. I just kind of read the lore and make my own assumptions from it. But if I am wrong, or if you have your own theories, feel free to correct me down in the comments. I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong if I mess something up. But I'm pretty certain, I am certain that the Exodus Prime was real, because we have the Exodus Black and all the other Exodus ships as evident of that. And as far as the Ford Tomb and Nezarec goes, we probably won't know more about that till maybe a later DLC or maybe Destiny 3 in general. Now, let's talk about the chance that the Drifter is wrong. Perhaps he is. But to go back to the other point to say that he's right, there's only one other person that could potentially prove that the Drifter's telling the truth. Now, this is purely speculation. Don't take this as certainty. But the only other person that I can think of is probably Lord Saladin. Because the Drifter lived during the Dark Age, when the Iron Lords were at their peak, were in their prime. Which begs the question. So, Saladin is probably about as old as the Drifter, maybe older. So Saladin had to have known most about these. He had to have at least heard about these. Not just the Drifter. But because these are myths, if they're myths, that means someone had to have known about them to tell us or pass it on to someone so the knowledge would continue. It doesn't come off that Drifter would just simply make all this up. If they're old myths, someone had to have known about it and passed the knowledge forward. How does the knowledge survive if no one knows about it to pass it forward? That's just my theory. But Exodus Prime, that has to be real. Beyond a doubt, because the Exodus ships are evident of that. What if the Exodus Prime was one of the Exodus ships? The Exodus Prime has to be real. As for the others, we simply don't know. Now, the core mines of Saturn, don't know what that is. But because we've been to Saturn, well, pseudo been to Saturn, we've been to the Dreadnought, Saturn's rings, wonder if we'll go back to Saturn. Thing is, these names are awfully specific. From a writing perspective, they wouldn't name things so specific if they wouldn't use any of these. And perhaps they won't. Maybe they won't. But I would, at the very least, like to see these from a distance. Like whatever the solar engine of Dead Star 6 is, whatever that is. I'd like to be able to see it from a distance. Maybe not go to it, but at least say like, oh, it's right there. Look at it. Or like the idols of Lower Seul, like the Luvial cards. Like even if we don't go to these places, maybe we could at least see them. Just an idea. So, this is a little bit of a lore speculation kind of thing. And like I said, I don't think I'm right about any of these at all. I very much well could be wrong, and perhaps the writers pull a fast one and the Drifter was lying the whole time. I could be wrong. But because of how open-ended this is, and because I keep going back to Exodus Prime, because we have the Exodus Black and all of the other Exodus ships to prove that the Exodus ships were real. Who's to say the Exodus Prime isn't? Again, I could be wrong, but for some of the more well-versed lore people out there, please explain your theories down in the comments below. I'd love to hear them, and if I'm off, by all means correct me. I don't claim to know everything, and if there's a gap in my knowledge, I'm sorry, but feel free to correct me, because I want to make sure that I get my lore correct. And as someone who likes the lore, I want to be sure of it. But because this is mainly speculation, I don't claim to be sure about any of this. But like I said, it's all speculation. I don't stand by anything that I say, except for the fact of Exodus Prime. I know that has to be real, because the other Exodus ships. Anyways, I had to make this video. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I just had to make this video. So, bit of a different lore video, and if you guys like these speculation videos and you want me to do more, I will do what research I can to try to be as accurate as I possibly can. So, this is about all I got right here. Like I said, it was completely unscripted. This is just basically my speculation of these myths here. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys in the next one.